stood by his principles. He served his country and helped others around him. He made people laugh. James Thomas Chandler touched many lives in his 86 years on this earth. Born in Pontiac, Michigan, he and his growing family migrated to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then down to the rural town of Rochester, Illinois, before retiring down here. He was a Midwesterner through and through. He lived a tragic life, losing his brother at a relatively young age, followed by his daughter Lynn, a newlywed, in 1982, and his son Mark in 2015. No parent should be predeceased by their children. It's just not the normal, natural order of things. It was a burden he had to carry, and that shaped the man who he became. Dad was always good-natured and fun-loving. He never took things too seriously outside of his work. He was a witty one-liner machine. Anyone he met who he had never seen before would get the standard set of questions. It was his way of cracking their shell, getting to know them personally. Do you dream in color? He would ask. There was no right answer. It was just the start of a conversation, any conversation. Of course, with most ladies, he would often leave them with every moment away will be an eternity. How many of you were the recipient of this one-liner? I rest my case. Every woman has received it from him. Public humiliation of his children was something he enjoyed immensely. That's a family tradition that I've graciously passed down to my own children. He would sing this embarrassing birthday song to his kids and grandkids with no sense of key signature or tonal quality. I know a boy who had a birthday today. I know a girl who had one too. I'm very happy, and I'm happy to say, happy, happy birthday to you. And when he would do that, generally the song was met with abject embarrassment, which was exactly what he wanted. His granddaughter Amanda remembers him singing some of the other favorites to her. Amanda's right here. Songs like Babyface, it's just a regular song, right? Or his more infamous, she's got freckles on her butt, she's nice. She sang those songs to him a couple of hours before he passed away, which caused him to squeeze her mother Amber's hand, the only proof that he was even conscious. By the time I reached his bedside after driving 1,000 miles from New Jersey on that day, he was no longer squeezing hands. I said to him these words, "You will die with dignity, and you will be buried with honor." Minutes afterward, he peacefully passed away. Dad was very matter-of-fact. He would stay calm through terrible situations, partially due to his daily stresses of his career. To some, he seemed cold or lacked empathy. In reality, he simply saw through the emotional aspects of life issues and focused on the practical aspects and solutions to them. He generally wasn't there to give you a hug. He was there to help you deal with your problems head on. In essence, he was a psychologist through and through. It didn't help me to bond with him through life, but it also didn't really bother me either. He was a stereotypical father of the 1950s who came home from work and read the paper with a drink in hand while mom tended to the kids. Not every father from the 50s was that way, but there were plenty of them. Dad was not handy. There wasn't a tool he couldn't misuse. There wasn't a task he couldn't severely injure himself doing. There wasn't a screw he couldn't hammer in. Fortunately, that complete lack of handiness skills did not pass down to his children. I'm the exact opposite in that it takes an act of God for me to pay anyone to do anything for me. That being said, my son, who's an Eagle Scout, can't seem to hand me a Phillips screwdriver to save his life. Maybe it skips a generation. Apparently, baldness does not. He took the family on long camping trips with our pop-up in tow. We saw 35 states at least, as well as bits of Canada and Mexico. We saw most of the major landmarks, tourist traps, and roadside historical markers of the country. We saw a lot more of this country than most families back then because of him. Due to his time crisscrossing the Pacific in Navy ships, he had a wider worldview, and he wanted to instill that in his children. In retirement, he would later travel as far as Alaska from here with Mom towing the far bigger deluxe trailer that had an actual bathroom in it rather than a stupid bucket on the ground, but I digress. In retirement, when Mom and Dad would visit Mark and Amber and Amanda in Pennsylvania, Mark would always make sure that the bar was stocked with good scotch. Because he knew Dad would be sneaking it into his coffee cup when Mom wasn't looking. You see, Mom ruled the roost at home. She hid foods she knew he would gobble up, and the booze he would quickly consume. We felt bad for Dad in his later years and made sure he got his contraband when he visited us. Speaking of scotch, his favorite drink was a perfect Rob Roy on the rocks with a cherry. He would order this drink in any restaurant and was not surprised when the expert minimum wage bartender at Chili's couldn't get it right. 5 parts scotch to 1 part sweet and 1 part dry vermouth. Not hard. No matter, he would just wince and drink it anyway. I was witness to his final imperfect Rob Roy on the rocks. It was a fitting tribute to a drink that belongs in a Clark Gable movie rather than an Olive Garden. Still, it was alcohol, and he was on a probationary visit outside the big house, Timber Ridge. I can only imagine what his blood sugar was when they tested him upon return. I can just imagine a nurse at the end of the driveway. But he enjoyed it. In all seriousness, my father did some groundbreaking things in his career. His work in police psychology expanded the field immensely. He was on the ground floor back in the 1970s. He was an expert hostage negotiator and was able to counsel cops through some of the most horrific situations they were involved in. I remember when a state police officer in his cruiser was rammed by a semi-truck into a line painting truck he was protecting on I-55. Other troopers tried and failed to get him out of his car, which by then was an inferno coated in hundreds of gallons of flammable paint. In fact, the road was stained with that paint for a decade thereafter. They had no choice but to stand back and watch in horror. Dad was there immediately to counsel them and worked with them for months to help them deal with the severe mental scars. He counseled cops who mistakenly shot kids who had toy guns, as well as other terrible situations that left lasting mental trauma. He developed tactics against terrorism and decision trees to help resolve various types of hostage situations that he in turn taught to thousands of state and federal law enforcement agents. Soon, some of these tactics are still in use nationwide, documented in a textbook he wrote called Modern Police Psychology that he published in 1990. His stressful life in law enforcement hardened him. Humor was the only thing that humanized him and kept him from deeper depression. Part of that mental trauma caused him to develop a morbid sense of humor, which he passed down to me. Mom, having literally grown up in a funeral home, only added to it. For example, when telling me a few years ago about his wishes for this very funeral and his memorialization down south there, he requested a bagpiper, a 21-gun salute, a Navy honor guard, a Navy battleship flyover, and a sword swallower. That was just how it was with him. That's how it is with me. That's exactly why this half heartfelt emotion and half roast came to be. That's what he would have wanted. I want this day to be a celebration of his long and interesting life. not a day of mourning. He wouldn't want us all sad. He was suffering, struggling to breathe, dealing with a range of issues, especially after the COVID-19 had taken the wind out of his sails. He had Parkinson's, type 2 diabetes, congestive heart failure, COPD, trouble swallowing, deafness, ovarian cysts, the plague, black lung, cat scratch fever, foreign accent syndrome, and rickets. He was in essence irreversibly broken, waiting for one of his other ailments to take him. He asked for hospice numerous times, but each time I found viable options for him to live reasonably stable. When his doctors informed me recently of his worsening condition and prognosis, I immediately asked for hospice on behalf of him, and he lasted but 2 more days. He died with dignity, and he desperately wanted and needed to die. He is in a much better situation this way, and we should celebrate that fact, not mourn it. I love you, Dad. You will soon be buried with full military honors and in full seriousness. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home.